What's up, guys? Welcome back to King Kraken Sports. Mike here. Hope everyone's enjoying their weekend. Welcome back to day 3 of 7 days, 7 videos. And today we are talking about the quarterback class for the upcoming 2019 draft. That sounds weird saying that it's upcoming given that, it's August and the draft is until April, but this upcoming college football season. So let's get right into it. Let's not waste a lot of time. Let's start with my guy, the number 1 quarterback on my board, Justin Herbert out of Oregon. He's 6'6". Last year he was playing at around 220. Reports are he's gotten up to about 240, 245. And you watch this guy on tape, and if the way that he played at 225 is still the way he's going to play at 240, 245, this kid reminds me a lot of kind of like a poor man's Carson Wentz. They have very similar play styles in college. Obviously, if you guys have known me for a long time, I wasn't a big fan of Carson Wentz coming out. I am the first to admit I was wrong on that. I was very wrong. I've backtracked on basically everything I said on Carson Wentz coming out as a prospect. I see a lot of Justin Herbert that was there with Carson Wentz, that kind of raw, just that, that raw clay that can be molded by just a competent quarterback, competent, offensive coordinator in the right system and the right scheme and everything. Very, very careful with the ball. But just like Wentz broke his wrist, I believe, in his last year at North Dakota State. Justin Herbert's got some injury concerns. He had a collarbone injury, and then I believe he fucked up his shoulder. So he's had some issues as well that he's going to have to get taken care of. He's going to have to prove that he can stay durable for a whole year, and I think that was part of the reason he put on a bunch of size. He's got some mental toughness issues. There are reports of him crying in the huddle, which obviously, you gotta make sure that when you're the quarterback, you gotta be the leader. But on film, there's really not a lot of flaws in Herbert's game. I have him as a top 10 player in this class. I fully expect him to be, if everything stays the same and if he improves and doesn't horrendously fuck this year up, he should definitely come the end of the season probably still be in the QB1 discussion. Next up, another player I want to talk about that I appear to be one of the few people really high on is Jake Bentley. Where the fuck did Buckley come from? Jake Bentley out of South Carolina. 6'3", 220, a little bit mobile. Had a bit of a down year. Had a really good freshman season, but his sophomore year was a little bit down. That can really be attributed to the fact that Deebo Samuel, his number 1 wide receiver, got hurt. So he had a pretty decent year last year, all things considered. He did dip below 60%, which he's got to clean up a little bit. But generally very safe with the ball. Again, higher number of turnovers last year in his sophomore than in his freshman year. That can, again, when you're missing your best receiver and your best weapon in your offense, that can happen. I think if Samuel comes back and he's healthy and Bentley puts it all together, we could be looking at something special. I've compared him to Mitch Trubisky from when Trubisky was at North Carolina. I feel like there's still not a lot known about Bentley, much like there was with Trubisky going into his first and only year at North Carolina as a starter. But if the cards fall right, we could be in for a very good season from Bentley, from Samuel, and from South Carolina. And having a good season, if South Carolina can go 9-3, 10-2, whatever the case may be, that can really elevate Bentley's stock itself. Because, we see it every year. In order to get a lot of notoriety, you really do have to lead your team to a pretty good season. So, I like the Trubisky comp that I've come up with. I think there are a lot of similarities. They're mobile without actually needing to constantly show you how mobile they are. They're mobile when they need to be, and they actually similarity in terms of accuracy and everything like that, arm strength. They're both pretty similar in a lot of those categories. I think Jake Bentley maybe slipping on the radar a little bit. Guy I really like. Good season. He could probably find himself in round 1 conversation. Another guy that I really like that's getting, depending on where you go, either no attention or a lot of attention, Ryan Finley out of North Carolina State. This could have been potentially like a second, third round pick last year's class. In last year's absolutely loaded quarterback class, this year's class nowhere near as loaded. But, watch the Clemson game. That's really all I got to say about Ryan Finley. Watch the Clemson game. He absolutely dominated that game. Started like 17 of 17. Doesn't turn the ball over, very safe with the ball, and is actually a pretty reliable athlete when he needs to be. You see someone his size, you don't generally expect him to be this like mobile, freak of nature athlete. He's by no means a freak of nature, but he can get himself out of a pinch when he needs to. He's an older prospect. This is his sixth year in college football. He was a Boise State player, then transferred, and this is his sixth year in the NCAA. So he's actually older than me. He's 24, or will be 24. So yeah, a little bit older of a prospect, which might go against him. But again, I mean, this guy is just super reliable. He's not really much of a Charlie check down, for lack of a better term, type of player. But, he's very safe with it. He doesn't take a lot of risky throws, but he is willing to stretch the field when he has to. I actually compare him a lot to Alex Smith. Reliable athlete, very safe with the ball, doesn't turn it over, great game manager type quarterback. And game managers, I know it's kind of, passe. I know that, it's almost used as an insult. But, I mean, look at some of the really good, successful, game manager type quarterbacks we saw. Like, Tom Brady, when he started, was very much a game manager in his early years. Alex Smith, like I mentioned, Teddy Bridgewater coming out was in that same ilk. Those guys can have long, successful careers if in the right system and in the right circumstance. So that's one of the reasons I really like Ryan Finley. I expect him to be a round one pick. Jarrett Stidham out of Auburn is a guy that coming from Baylor, and after that whole shitstorm went down, transferred to Auburn. Last year was his first year. I really need to see him throw more than just a go route and a screen pass. I'd like to actually see him throw a proper route tree. So this is going to be a big year for him. I think he's okay. He's a round 2 guy, in my opinion. I don't get the round 1 QB1 type hype that he seems to be getting. Will Grier coming off of a hand injury, West Virginia. He's obviously got 2 of the best receivers in the country, in Gary Jennings and David Sills V. So have to see whether they're bailing him out or whether it's a bit of both. He's a pretty good player. He seems to have actually put it all together from his days at Florida. However, he's small. Like, he's small. He's about 6'1", probably about 210, 215. Baker light. Baker was 6 feet, but like 230, 235. He needs to put on a little bit more size. But if anyone could do like the Baker Mayfield, no one's talking about him as a QB1 coming into the year, and then by the end of the year he is some people's QB1, that guy is Will Grier this year. Nick Fitzgerald coming off a bad injury at Mississippi State. I mentioned this the other day. Have to see how much he bounces back from that. I'd also like to see him, throw the ball a little bit more. I've always kind of thought that he is a bit of a Tebow type player in that he's big. He's like 6'5", 230, but he's more so used in the running game than he is in the passing game. So again, big year for him in that regard. Tyree Jackson out of Buffalo. This is a small school kid that I really love. 6'7", 250 pounds, bit of a dual threat, cannon for an arm. This guy, I don't even really have a comp for him. He's a freak, and he's got a cannon for an arm. But, I mean, you can't help but look at him and see Cam Newton, but he's just not anywhere near as good as Cam Newton was coming out. He's like a poor man's Cam Newton. I don't know what to call that. Would that be like Colin Kaepernick meets Brandon Bridge? It's such a weird comp for me to make, so I need to see more from him this year specifically to really get a grasp on him. And he was hurt a bit last year as well. Okay, so I've gotten to the 2 guys that I really didn't want to talk about because, good God, I've seen them overrated so much this year. Drew Lock and Clayton Thorson. Let's get Thorson out of the way because this is not an NFL prospect. I've seen him talked about in the round 1 discussion. I have absolutely no idea why this kid from Northwestern is being talked about this well. He is right-handed Tim Tebow. He's right-handed Tebow. Like, Fitzgerald is Tebow-ish. No. Thorson is Tebow in that he, is purely a running quarterback, and he also can't fucking throw. Like, he can't throw. He's got no arm strength. He's got Tebow's arm. He's bad. He's really bad. Let's stop talking about Clayton Thorson as a prospect. It's over. It's over. It's over. Done. Not doing it. Not doing it. This is officially an anti-Clayton Thorson channel. And Drew Lock. What is there with Drew Lock? He's got a strong arm, but the ball dies in the air. Like, Mason Rudolph had this problem last year, but Rudolph had some form of placement. Drew Lock, all of his interceptions came against teams like South Carolina, like competent defenses. South Carolina, Texas. Texas wasn't even that great of a defense, but his turnovers came against the teams that could actually play defense. His touchdowns all came against teams like Vanderbilt and Missouri State. Remember the game against Missouri State where he had like 8 touchdowns in one game? Yeah, that was like a third of his touchdowns or whatever. Something insane. Like, I think it was somewhere in around like 25 to 30% of his touchdowns came in that game. And he lost his offensive coordinator. He's not good. He's got no physical traits. Like, Josh Allen at least had the physical traits. Locke doesn't have the tape, doesn't have the ability, and doesn't have the traits, so I don't really understand it. Quick note, couple guys I haven't gotten around to watching just yet. Easton Stick out of North Dakota State. A lot of people think that he could be the next Carson Wentz, for lack of a better term. They're not the same physically, but just, North Dakota State could rise up the boards. And Shea Patterson, as I mentioned the other day, just because I'm not a big fan of watching guys that are grad transfers without any sort of tape on them. I have no idea what to expect from Shea Patterson at Michigan. At least I'll be able to get an answer to that pretty early in the season when they face Notre Dame in Week 1. That's going to do it for today. As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend, tell another friend, and I'll see you again tomorrow.